First, I go in with the sanding band and I'm laying it flat to make sure I don't cause any indents in the nail. Now I go in with the ball bit with reverse and I'm only touching that on the skin. I don't touch it on the nail plate. Now you want to go in with the sterilized tool and you only want to nip what is necessary, what will cause lifting. So whenever I'm sizing the nail tip, I make sure it fits sidewalls to sidewalls. You don't want to have it too small. If you don't have the size of the nail, you can just glue on a bigger nail tip and file it down. So to measure the nails, I'm just cutting them and I'm measuring them with the nail tip cutter. Sometimes I do use forms to measure the nail. Now I'm filing it to make it look more coffin shape because my client did request that. So I just file. So with blending tips, some people do it, some people don't. Personally, I do it sometimes. I've done it before not blending it, but it doesn't affect my retention. I do feel like it does help me with the application. So you can try it out if you want to, but you don't need to. Now I go in with dehydrating first with Young Nail Swipe. I dehydrate 2 times. So now I go in with VBP's dehydrator and you guys can see how it's just sliding off. That's how you want it to be. That's how you know the nail is properly dehydrated. So now I'm going with VBD Pure Super Bond. I'm applying this very generously and I'm applying 2 coats of it. I pair that with the Young Nails Protein Bond and this will make sure my retention is bomb. Look at that. Beautiful. So the cover color that I'll be using is Blossom by VBD Pure as well as Super White for the ombre. So now I go in with the white. I wet my nail tip first because I feel like the ombre slips down better or the acrylic slips down better. I'm applying it and white is very tricky, but you guys just have to have patience with it. Make sure to constantly wipe your brush onto the paper towel so none of the white acrylic can get stuck in there. Whenever the monomer starts to get cloudy and you're doing white acrylic application, it means it's contaminated and it won't help you at all. So whenever I'm doing ombre, I make sure to leave that white and let it dry. And then I apply the nude after. I just feel like the ombre is better that way. So for acrylic application, you guys can see how I'm tapping that brush in so it can polymerize faster. Whenever the acrylic starts to fall to the side walls, I start to pick it back up and then I'm just wetting the tip so the acrylic can slide down faster. You want to start tapping with the belly of the brush, which is the middle of the brush. That will help you so much, and you want to be very mindful of those side walls and of the free edge. So for my beginners, I'd like for the cuticle bead to be a little bit more smaller, but it's everybody's personal preference. So I place it and I hold the nail downwards so gravity can do its thing and it won't flood the cuticle area. And now I'm just swiping and I make sure that the acrylic doesn't go towards the side walls. If it touches the skin, it can cause premature lifting. So just be very mindful of that. What I love to do to ensure the shape is start tapping the side walls and the free edges so that shape can be crisp. And this is just a little time lapse of the acrylic application. You guys can see how I'm tapping it very gently. You don't want to do too hard taps just because it can mess up with the acrylic and it won't help you in any way. You want to make sure you have the proper PPE, which is gloves. You're dealing with a bunch of chemicals, so it's better not to touch them. That can give you contact dermatitis. It can irritate the skin, so make sure to put on the gloves. So for the ombre, I'm placing that nude, and then once I get past that little white harsh line, I start to blend downwards. I wet the white just so the ombre can blend a little bit more faster, and as you guys can see, I was tapping it in with the belly of the brush, which is the middle, because when the acrylic starts drying, you want to start adding a little bit more pressure. For the cuticle bead on the ombre, I want to have it a little bit more on the thinner side just so my nail won't look very bulky, and I'm going to encapsulate it with clear acrylic. I want you guys just to appreciate that acrylic application. I always lift the skin upwards to see if there's any acrylic on the skin. So now with the 5-in-1 bit, this is from Pana. I just go in at a speed of 14. I like this one because it doesn't cut your client or anything, and I'm only gonna use that on the cuticle area or to fix any indentations. So as you guys can see, I'm going carefully and I'm not holding it on a spot too much. That can cause heat spike. Once I know that the cuticle area is all sealed is when the nail starts to look flush. So just imagine this. Once it starts growing out, you want to make sure it looks like it's growing out from the natural nail. So now I start filing sidewall to sidewall. I hold back the skin just so I don't cut my client. And you also want to season your file. I forgot to mention it, but just grab another file and start etching the edges off of this file. I start to buff now. And when I'm buffing, you guys can see how I am just going to start touching on the nail. I'm touching to see if there's any lines or if there's any harsh, like, if it's a harsh surface, so I can buff and I can just make sure that the nail is smooth. And it helps me a lot with French tips. Buffing is super important so the French tips can look bomb and your application will be better. So now I go in with Young Nail Swipe to cleanse the nails. This is an alternative for soap and water. It's basically equal parts alcohol, equal parts acetone, and then I go in with a nylon brush and I just start brushing upwards. So now with my French tips, I'm using Beauty Pure's white. I've never found a white more pigmented than this. For my French tip application, you guys can see how I am just placing that brush on the nail and I'm just swiping it. I love to swipe to use my French tips and then I connect them. I always make sure to ask my client if it's good. I tilt it up to her and I ask her, is this good? And if she gives me the yes, then I'm gonna proceed. But if not, I can always change it to their liking. So now I'm just gonna start filling it back in with the white, and I cure this for about 30 to 60 seconds depending on your lamp, but mostly 60 seconds. So look how I'm just swooping that brush in, and then once I have the two sides connected, I just start making that smile line crisp and I start evening it out. Something that also helps me is holding my pinky onto the client's nail. I feel like my nail doesn't shake that way. You also want to make sure that you're drinking no coffee while you are doing French tips or any detailed designs, because that can make you shake a lot. So I'd prefer you to just be calm, take your time. Don't worry about time. I use Nails by Dev Trippy Gel for this, but right now we're going to make a flower. It's kind of sticky, but you don't want to have your room to be too hot because the gel can be very sticky, or if it's too cold, it just won't mold with you. So you want to make sure you're using a pusher or just not having contact with the gel because it can cause contact dermatitis. So for the flower, I just push up and then I start to kind of swipe on the ends of the balls to make that pointy type of look. Sculpture gel is so easy once you know how to use it, but you guys see how I'm literally just swiping it in the middle to create that little flowery shape, and then I cure it for 60 seconds 2 times. So I just fix up that shape, but we're basically going for that beachy type of look. So now I'm gonna start painting it. This is actually the brush that I'm using to paint on the flower white is actually a 3D brush. It's from Beauty Pure as well, and it's the number 6. I love using it because something about the bristles, it's so easy to paint on this flower, and I do 2 coats of this flower. I'm also using the white from Beauty Pure, very pigmented, and then I just cure it. So now I'm gluing the little rhinestone beads on with builder gel. I feel like that helps my application, and I love having those little flash cured lamps because I feel like it helps me speed up faster, and it also helps me a lot with this specific design. I struggled with this design for the longest, but I feel like once you start having that flash cured lamp, it won't take too long and you're more prepared. So what you see on the brush, you can see a big glob at the end of the brush. I love having that, and then I like making sure it's placed right at the end, and then I go in and I just swipe up. You want to make sure that the big glob is on the end of the brush, not towards the middle, because then it won't look good. So I just start sticking on the little gems and the little starfish, and I'm top coating. This is the glossy top coat from Beauty Pure. I go in with the lint-free wipe to file off the free edge and make it more crisper. I use the 180 side because I feel like if you use a coarser grit, it will chip on you. Now I go in with cuticle oil. This is very important for your clients. This also helps them with hangnails, but it also makes sure your pictures are going to look much better. Again, I hope you guys like this YouTube video. This was my first YouTube video. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm here for you. Bye, guys. I hope you have a nice day and subscribe.